Good morning and welcome to a dose of Monday morning medicine. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about insulin resistance. If you've never heard of insulin resistance, you might have heard of Syndrome X, metabolic syndrome, basically everything that's happened to everyone in the developed world for about the last 30 to 40 years. So there's a really great metaphor, a bit of imagery about this, but before I get into how insulin resistance works, I thought I'd introduce myself and then just talk about the consequences of having insulin resistance over the long term first. So, hello, my name is Dr. Michael Smith. I've been in practice about 30 years. I focus on a combination of traditional Chinese medicine, functional medicine, and a very focused, embodied approach to releasing trauma and helping people resolve addiction. So what happens to people if they have too high blood sugar and a bad response or an inefficient response to that high blood sugar because their insulin metabolism, for many reasons, is wearing down? First thing that we're going to see, which we see everywhere, is increased body weight, especially body fat. Then there's going to be the changes in your gut microbiome, which produces more generalized inflammation, more neurotoxins going into your brain from your gut. They also have to move through your liver to get to your brain, and then on the way to their brain, some of those toxins are going to go through your kidneys into your skin. So when we think about the effects of eating a high sugar, high starch, high processed food diet, it isn't always just about what happens inside your blood. It actually happens to be connected to every system, every organ in your body. When we think about what's going on inside your blood vessels, especially the blood vessels inside your brain, chronically high blood glucose or blood sugar and chronically high blood insulin actually damage, wear down, and cause a kind of cooking, if you will, we call glycation, which is almost like those little grill marks on your barbecue everywhere inside your body, but especially inside your blood vessels and especially inside the blood vessels of your brain, because your brain always wants that sugar too. And this brings up one of the most common kinds of dementia or cognitive decline that we call vascular dementia. And again, if you barbecue your brain, the blood vessels in your brain, by accident, most of the time, that's actually what's going to be happening over decades of time. This also affects people's blood vessels everywhere else. And we say in medicine, and pardon the pun, ED can lead to ED, which means endothelial dysfunction, the barbecuing of the inside of your blood vessels everywhere, can stiffen and weaken the blood vessels inside the male genitals or the penis, and that creates the condition for erectile dysfunction. So endothelial function can become erectile dysfunction, which for most people is no bueno, not so good. And it all goes back to the long-term damage of having insulin resistance. So I'm going to ask you to picture a person, maybe yourself, maybe someone you like, maybe someone you don't, inside of a living room, and this person's got it made in whatever way this might sound, having it made, because they can sit in their lazy boy chair and watch whatever they want on a screen, and they have a butler or a person who helps them, who goes and gets food and brings them things and cleans up the mess and all of that. So the imagery I'm hoping to use that for to help us is inside your cell or inside that living room is a little bit of machinery that commands what's going on inside of the cell and uses the energy. And there are in fact things kind of like butlers that are little enzymes inside of cells that open and close receptors for different nutrients and to release different wastes. So here's the imagery, and I hope this helps. So here's our friend or person we know sitting in the lazy boy chair. They're really into whatever they're into right now, so they wave their hand at their butler and say, "I want you to order me some pizza." So the butler does their job, and then after a while, knock, 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 on the outside of the cell or the house, the pizza delivery person shows up and says, "Here's your pizza, here's your glucose." The butler says, "Thank you very much for the pizza," glucose, takes it into the living room, gives it to our mitochondrial overlord in the living room, and everyone's happy. Pizza delivery traffic is working great, butler has something to do, person in the chair gets their pizza. And as long as that's a regular thing, we eat regularly, not too much, we eat healthy food, then there's no problem in the sense of getting that sugar, the pizza, from your digestive system into your blood, into your cells. Everything's running the way it's meant to. Now, what happens if that person either has some kind of prank going on and they just keep automatically ordering pizza? Maybe someone down the hall in the apartment building is making little bits of prank fun and calling the pizza delivery place. Maybe that person in the lazy boy chair really is starting to develop some kind of stress problem and they're just, I don't know, gorging on pizza. However we want to frame it, what we want to think about now is this person in the living room sitting in their lazy boy, watching what they're watching, pointing their finger to the butler, saying, I want more pizza, I want more pizza, I want more pizza. So now think of yourself as the butler. You're there waiting for the door knock and, open the door, but now the door is knocking all of the time. And every time you open the door, you look down the blood vessel, highway of pizza delivery trucks, and all you can see is infinite little pizza delivery cars, which is the insulin, holding onto a big, huge pizza pie saying your pizza/sugar glucose is here. So if you're the butler, and maybe you like this person in the chair, maybe you're trying to take care of them, but you're aware that if you just keep letting pizza into the house and pizza boxes into the house and everything else that's going on, you're going to make the house sick. You're going to make the person who owns the house sick. And as a butler, you're not really doing your job to take care of the house or the person in the chair. So what would you do if you were the butler? Well, what most butlers are going to do is lock the door. So what happens? Well, now, the pizza delivery people are like grabbing the handle and knocking on the door and doing all of the fun things you can imagine, because their job is to get that pizza inside of the cell or inside of that house. But the butler, which is technically called a Delta 6 sigma, or it's called a D6 enzyme pathway, which basically means how your body responds to regular amounts of glucose in pizza. Now, when your butler decides, I've had it, this is not my job, I don't want to clean up this mess, I'm locking the door, that butler changes its shape or morphology in the body into what's called a D5 enzyme. We don't need to really know about all that too much, but it's just to be aware that now your cells are functioning in a way to protect themselves against what's going on in traffic or in your blood supply. So now we're back to this situation where the cell is congested and overfed of glucose and sick with that until it starts to starve. And then it's going to send messages out all over the body saying, I'm starving for glucose or pizza, and the door is locked. And now you're craving a lot, and it takes a while for those cell receptors, those little butlers, to say, okay, fine, we'll open the door. And that space between having the door locked and the door open is a big part of what we call hypoglycemia, or being hangry, in the sense that if we don't eat something, we're probably going to behave in a way that isn't so good for our friendships. So now we have this situation where people are swinging back and forth between feeling good, healthy, normal, feeling hangry, hypoglycemic, stress intolerant, very, very high on the craving list, which can lead to all kinds of other patterns of addictive behavior, because we're very physically, you could say almost on an ecology of the body level, unwell metabolically. And obviously, again, that's not good. And as I began in this video with some of the consequences, imagine what's happening now that your blood supply is full of glucose, which is cooking the inside of your body by glycation, mixing with proteins to do the barbecue part, as well as the high insulin, which actually wounds your vascular tissue in a way, kind of like breaking down the inner lining a bit, which causes some plaquing and scarring, which actually turns out to be the primary vector or cause of arteriosclerotic plaquing. Although cholesterol is a part of that dance, it's not the actual at fault of the problem. It's the high glucose and insulin stiffening, breaking down, and wounding the arteries, causing inflammation and a lot of other harm. So one of the top killers today is heart disease. And if we could get our insulin resistance down, we can get our heart disease risks down. The other big baddie, of course, insulin resistance, leading to prediabetes, leading to actual diabetes, or what we now call diabetes type 3, diabetes of the brain, or Alzheimer's disease. So that's a really bad idea. Now, another thing, and I'll try and stop soon, When you have chronic high insulin, chronic high blood sugar, you have chronic high inflammation, not only in your blood supply, but as a part of the signaling within your immune system. Now, if your immune system is going, well, we should probably burn this thing down, that's going to drive every gene you have for any inflammatory conditions that might be in your family's history. So that's not something you really want at all. And the number one scary, bad thing is, of course, cancer. Cancer wants to, when it gets turned on, to consume 15 times the amount of calories per cellular moment in glucose if it can. So the more high glucose we have, the more high cancer activity we're going to have. Now, cancer in one way is a bit of a normal biological process gone rogue. So giving it the perfect conditions to go rogue and then feeding it exactly what it needs is in no way going to help anyone be well. So I hope that helps you a little bit with understanding, at least in the metaphor of imagery, the profound danger and destructive influence that can happen when we produce insulin resistance. What's the cure? A lot healthier food, real food, food that your grandparents would recognize as actual food, food that has no label on it because it's actually just food. Food, if it has to have a label on it, doesn't have words in it that you don't know what they mean. Why not just stick to the wall? This is the best advice anyone's ever given to me. I think they also call it perimeter shopping. Go into the store, go by the produce aisle, get what you want from the dairy and the eggs and the meat and the fat and all of that stuff. And if you can focus on healthy animal products, healthy vegetables, maybe organic most of the time, and avoid a lot of the grains and beans unless you really feel you thrive on those. Avoid anything processed, anything that's blatantly full of sugar, unnecessarily high digestive fruit sugars like fruit juice, and things like that. You're just going to reverse the thing that's making everyone sick today. So again, I hope that helps you. Again, my name is Dr. Michael Smith. I'm now practicing in Souk, BC. If there's anything you need in the integrative medicine, functional medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and how to deal with trauma and addiction with someone who knows what they're talking about, please give me a call. Have a great day.